Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe.
Good afternoon, welcome along to NUFC Matters. It is another episode of Ask George. How are you, George?
I'm fine, Steve, thank you.
Good.
Thanks to everybody that's tuning in.
Good stuff, yes. A bit of an odd time today, but as I say, a busy weekend for me this weekend, so had to swap things around a little bit, but just get your questions in for George. It's as simple as that. We've got two early ones. Tom Dixon, good afternoon, sir. He says, ask George, what do you think of David Hopkinson, the new CEO?
Well, it's the first thing I'd say is it's not entirely a surprise because he was mooted very early in the search as a possibility. And that enabled me, along with Neil and others, to have a look at his background. And he certainly comes with a huge portfolio of things that he's done over a significant period of time, and all at the highest level. I mean, you don't do things in the States and things with Real Madrid and etc. unless you've done your homework, and he looks like a good fit, and more importantly, is someone who prides himself on being able to engage the community, not just the sport, but the community around the sport, and I suppose, well, he's in fact, that shouldn't be so surprising because his PhD is about community relations anyway. So it's something he's studied and something he's gone into, and wherever he's been, that's one of the things he's majored on. That he's not just been there for the sport; he's actually engaged with the community. So if he does, get a big 3 cheers from me, because on other platforms, I've been saying for a long time that we really needed somebody who was prepared to talk outside of the boardroom occasionally, and in a proper manner, not just stand on a table singing "Bladen Races" for God's sake. That really does get up my nose. That's not engaging. That's just paying lip service as far as I'm concerned. So if he does those things, that would be amazing, but he comes with a very good pedigree, is how I would put it, Tom.
Yep, good pedigree. I would agree, certainly. And he's involved. He has been involved in football, which, of course, some CEOs come in that don't have that kind of connection on their CV. So for me, that's very important. And Real Madrid, one of the biggest clubs in the world. So fingers crossed. Yeah, fingers crossed this is a step in the right direction. And I think communication is the key. I've got to be honest, George, I saw Jamie Rubin speak at the Champions League draw, and Georgie was excellent. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. And I'd love to see a bit more of Jamie Rubin in front of the camera.
Yes, it puzzles me why he doesn't, because I've seen him speak at non-football things, and he is excellent. I mean, the work I do with the Lord Lieutenant, he's sometimes been to things that they organise and he's spoken, and I thought he comes across very well.
Yeah,
and the big pluses, of course, he's got the Tyneside knowledge, the Tyneside ability, and him and his business have invested countless millions in the city. I mean, all of that Granger Town stuff's his. That it's all his. So yeah, that he would. He needs to step out of the shadows. I think. I wonder sometimes if he's kind of stuck back for a variety of reasons. But I would, like you, I would like to see him step out of the shadows and have a voice. He would come across very well. I mean, anybody that's met him at the food bank, because he does occasionally, he doesn't just put the money in, he does occasionally turn up and talk to Bill and the lads on the stall. And he does that very well as well. So, good call, Steve.
Gary, good afternoon. He says, question for George. Of all players we've signed, who are you most excited about?
Well, difficult one. Jacob Ramsey looks like a real footballer, and then we signed the centre back from Italy, and when he came on, he looked cool as cucumber. But in recent days and recent weeks, well, it's recent days, not weeks, when I've watched our new centre forward in the Bundesliga and on YouTube's, he's 6'6", but his feet are so quick for a big man. He's really got me excited as well. But I'll stick where I started. I think the one that could really surprise us all is Jacob Ramsey.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Dave, good afternoon. He says, ask George if he could extend 3 players' contracts today. Who would the 3 be?
Oh, that's not too hard. Tonali, Bruno, and Tino Livramento. Tino Livramento is exciting me as a young player, and is going to become. Every time he moves up, he seems to do well. I mean, he was the star of the under-23s recently with England, and it would be a sin before God if we let him go anywhere. I see him and Lewis Hall as our 2 fullbacks for the next decade, and probably England's as well if they get back together again. But they're the 3. Tonali, absolute class. I think we've got a lot more to see from him. Bruno and Livramento.
Okay, anyone's just joining now, we did already cover the CEO story with George, so Ian, your question is redundant, I'm afraid now, mate. But yeah, get your questions in. We rely on questions on this show, so keep them coming. Hi guys, George, does Nick Voltemada remind you of any past Newcastle players? A very tall, skillful player. Who does he remind you of?
Well, I can think of some very tall ones who make the hairs on the back of my neck stand and end. How awful they were. But yeah, interesting. It's a long time since we've had somebody who's so tall and lean as Valdemar. But also it's a long time since we've had anybody who's so tall and so quick with his feet. So picking out somebody from the past, not easy. As I say, some of the ones that come to mind aren't players that cover themselves in glory here. You name them yourselves, like George Riley and Cunningham and and the past, you know, that they really didn't cover themselves in glory at all. I think he's going to be an oddball. It's interesting how he's come from very late from where he's come from, come with a talented feet and so on, and he's arrived out of nowhere just like Isak did. So I struggle to compare him with what we've had, to be honest. Being long and tall and all of that. As I say, the long, tall ones I can remember were players who didn't cover themselves with glory at all. In fact, quite the reverse. There were horror shows. I mean, there was the tall Swede who I think we didn't make the most of. Andres Anderson, who had a talent, but I don't think we ever got the best out of him. He was, but he was had very quick feet, but again didn't cover himself in glory here. United had a couple of good games, but a lot of the time he was struggling. So difficult to answer that one. I think we've signed, for want of a better word, an oddball in many ways, and I think Eddie Howe's going to produce another star out of that young man. He looks fit and lean. He looks smart. And from the little I've heard him speak, he sounds like he's quite intelligent. He's quite an intelligent guy as well. So I'm looking forward to him making his mark. But to compare him is extremely difficult, as you can get why I'm waffling.
Yeah, okay. Get the questions in. Keep them coming. Thanks for that one, Jason. If John just making a point, he says if contract extensions aren't quickly sorted out by Tino, Hall and Sandro, do you fear a repeat of the Isak disaster, George?
God forbid. If what's happened in this last few weeks hasn't taught a lot of people a lot of things, then they all should be looking for jobs. And I cannot for 1 minute expect that our chairman in particular, because he's been made to look slightly off the pace with all of that catching us up, catching us up. On the other hand, what it also does is it just reflects on the place of integrity in football these days, because anybody who thought, after the way Isak went on at that celebration of the Carabao Cup and all that sort of thing, that this was going to follow within a few short weeks. I mean, his interview with Shearer was incredible. And Alan Shearer says he didn't see any of that in coming, there was not even a hint of it. So whatever happened, but if they're going to prevent it, then they've got to be on the ball. I mean, you know, Steve, for weeks when we were talking about him, and there was a hint, there was a contract thing. I kept saying on the Migos that somewhere in the background, surely somebody's writing a new contract now. Well, the reverse was happening. Bloody Mitchell was telling them it's not going to happen. That was the end of that. Yeah, I'd be devastated if it happened again. So I think they'll have their finger on the pulse, and for whoever is in football director, etc., for goodness sake, listen to our manager. Because if he gets word that something's not right, somebody's not happy, investigate it, do something about it. Don't let it hang, because it does sound like that Eddie's been worried for a little while what was happening, but by then it was too late. I pray it'll not happen again, but who knows? You never say never. But surely that somebody in St James's Park or in Saudi Arabia has now got the finger on the pulse somewhat and looking at all the talent that we've got and making sure that they're happy, because we couldn't afford that again. it apart from what it's done to the players, it's devastating to fans. I mean, it may, I'm close to 80 years, believe it or not, close to 80 years supporting Newcastle United. And this is one of the most devastating things I can remember. We've had people who've went on strike and refused to play and all. I mean, for goodness sake, Newcastle United were the instigators of the Boston stuff through George Eastham way back in the 60s, way back when I was a junior in the club. And I remember going on the bus with the reserve team to Stoke, and George Eastham wanted to come on the bus when in the middle of the storm he'd created by asking for more money and using lawyers to try and force the club to sell him. And he was kicked off the bus. The training staff wouldn't have anything to do with him. It was so caustic, so horrible. So, we've got a history of all this, but if I let it happen again, it would be an absolute disaster. As I say, I never have I been so, felt kicked in the small ones when all that stuff came out about what Isaac was saying and hinting at and not saying and all the rest of it. But yeah, it shouldn't happen again. If it does, then somebody should lose their job.
Yeah, Alan says the emergence of Hall and Livramento as hugely promising English fullbacks reminds me of Nattrass and Kennedy in the 70s. It's a shame that Nattrass had injury problems and Kennedy got sold to Liverpool.
Well, and even further back, we had Bobby Cowell and Ron Batty and others as well, but Nattrass, Irvin Nattrass, was going to be a huge talent for England as well as Newcastle, and unfortunately got a very, very, very bad knee injury and never really recovered from that. So we've had wet turns, and even further back. I mean, at the end of the war, we had Benny Craig and Joe Richardson were the fullbacks, and Benny Craig was the man who looked after the group of youngsters that I was involved in what a lovely man he was. And everybody then was saying, well, had it not been for the war, Benny and Joe would have been the England fullbacks. And as you come up each Frank Clark at the left side, at left back, was a brilliant England fullback who I think should have been recognised internationally, never mind at the league level. So, yeah, there are lots of good pairings we've had. Not all English, but certainly invariably one or other was English.
Stephen, good afternoon. He says, buying and selling of players, George, what rules would you bring in and what rules would you get rid of?
Oh, good one. Yeah. I've got to say, one of the most odious and despicable things about football today is that watching Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, and others, Chelsea, buying and selling players willy-nilly, hundreds of millions of pounds, when their clubs are hugely in debt. What Manchester United are now £2 billion in debt, and yet still chasing all the top players to sign and take to Old Trafford. I would somehow like to see woven into the fabric of football finance some sort of debt ratio against revenue. Most serious businesses do it. Why not football? But yeah, I can't see anybody at the top of the Premier League voting for anything like that, because there'd be a right shambles. The other thing is that I'd like to see the premium for homegrown players fixed. That the clubs getting a certain amount for a player that's been their own, that they've trained and brought up, and in a much more obvious and transparent way than it is at the moment. it's kind of woven into PSR, but in a very, very untransparent way, in my view. The other thing that I'd like to get rid of, there's so a lot of people I suspect, I'd like to see agents get their wings clipped. There's far too much power outside of the game, outside of the clubs, outside of the dressing room, where with so much power that they can cause the all sorts of kerfuffles. And I still don't think for 1 minute that all of that stuff that Isak went through was generated by him. Although he's 25-year-old, so he must have known what was going on. But I think other people were doing the stuff. Even his statement about liking the fans and all the rest of it, someone analysed it and they claim that 91% of it was written by AI. It wasn't written by a person at all. So, so I would like to see agents have their wings clipped as well.
Okay, good stuff. Keep the questions coming in. Dave says Bruno, Tonali, and Tino would be the three that I would extend. I'd like Tino to be here long term in an ideal world. Tell says, good afternoon, Tell. He says, there's so much media attention since the Isak situation, George. Are you as fed up with it like the rest of us? I wish they would have drawn a line and moved on. Yeah, I mean, we seem to have, since the transfer went through, we seem to be now just smothered in, articles, news coverage. Isak's gone to the toilet. Isak's, Isak's at training for Sweden. Isak's looking great, ready to make his Liverpool debut, etc., etc., etc. We're all getting a bit of an overkill on this, and
well, we
usually
are
on Sky, unfortunately.
Well, yes, and some of it's generated by people who support Liverpool. I mean, there are those journalists who would let Liverpool polish their shoes. That they're so in for it, and even to the point where they played down how much money we got off Liverpool for them. They stick by this 130 million. Well, some even stick by 125 million, for God's sake, because it plays the thing down and makes it look like Liverpool's done good business. But the reality of life is that Newcastle dug their heels in and made them pay all his bonuses, which tallied up to another 17 million. So that's not helping. And the to and fro between the journalists and the fans groups that are talking about things like that has kept the thing going. The short answer to a very good question is, yeah, I am fed up with it because I'm getting to the point where I can't even stand the man's name because of what he's done. But and the expected interviews when he went, and Liverpool would put their videos out and their welcome videos, but some of it has been absolutely garbage, trivial. When you get a reporter saying to a footballer sitting in front of him, what's it like to have the strip on? What's it like to be wearing the liver birds? Do you like the number on the back? Is that real television journalism?
Did you watch the liver birds?
absolutely trite. And but it keeps this rubbish momentum going. So the short answer is yes, I'd be happy if we didn't mention his name again, to be perfectly honest.
John says the season will likely be made or broken away from home at places like Palace, Wolves, Burnley and Fulham. Does George agree?
Well, I do indeed. I think as long as we don't have the sort of period of disaster like we had last year with Brentford and Brighton and Bournemouth at St James's Park. I mean, if we won 2 of those out of 3, which we should have done, goodness, what a different season we would have had. Yes, you're absolutely right. It's a point away and 3 at home, isn't it? If we've got any chance of doing anything, and they're the places where we have an opportunity, if we're on form, of getting 3 points, not 1 point, and we've got to go for it. If we can't, then we're going to be struggling. So I do agree. I think that it's those trips where there's a possibility of 3 points. If we don't at least get one, we're not going to frighten anybody. But I'm ever the optimist, and I still think we'll do well. But it's a fair point. It really is, because as I say, the teams mentioned are teams would expect not to get 1 point, but really have a good chance of getting 3. And if we don't get any, that would be something of a disaster. So you're absolutely right. That's where it'll be won and lost.
Neil, good afternoon. He says, did George collect cigarette cards as a kid?
Yes, I did. In fact, if I go up in my loft, I could find several sets that I collected over the years, which I passed on to our Neil, and some of them one of the most complete sets, and one which is quite valuable, was cigarette cards for the Sweetie cigarettes, not for real cigarettes, but for the Sweetie cigarettes. Can't remember their name now, but they were brilliant, because you got a nice photograph, and on the bottom you got the player's autograph, which was very nice. Obviously the autograph was photographed as well, but it was nice sets. So I've still got those. I've got some quite long ones which came out of a set of cigars, the long thin cigars. They had a set of which an aunt of mine used to smoke, and she used to keep the cards for us. And I've got that set upstairs as well, and they're all England internationals, and coloured ones, which were quite unusual in those days. Obviously there were a mixture of photographs and paintings, but they're still very attractive cards. Still got those. And I've got a set of players cigarettes. Had a set of cards as well. I've still got those upstairs in the loft, and they are internationals, but for the whole of the UK, England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales. They're all a mix in that lot, and that's complete. But as I say, the ones which I do know are valuable are the ones that I saved out of the Sweetie cigarettes, and they're still there.
Okay, we are halfway through the show. Let us have a quick ad break. Back after this. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them at www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickys.co.uk. Email info@mrvickys.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2 crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you like listening to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network or to iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. If you want to support the show, then hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the little thumb up under the video, which is the like button, or click share to share to your social media. You can also join the channel on YouTube by hitting the join button for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to become an NUFC Matters member, you can go to nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. It's a £25 one-off fee. You get your pen, you get your badge, a key ring, you get your beer mat and your fridge magnet and your membership card, nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk for that. And we have an event early next year, 13th of February 2026, an evening with Beardsley, Waddle and Gascoigne takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. To buy your tickets for that event, go to the box office 0191 243 1171 or Tyne Theatre and Opera House.uk. And don't forget, the fanzine is out next month in October. Issue 5, never mind the Swede, here's Wisser and Voldemort, will be issue 5 coming out in October. The lads are busy writing it at this moment in time. We've only got 5 subscriptions left. £25 for 4 issues, includes your postage for the season. Go to nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk and order the fanzine. All proceeds from the fanzine go to Age UK North Tyneside Dementia. And Les is busy promoting in the chat. Yes, we've got over 400 watching across all platforms. If you're not watching on YouTube, please take the time to go to YouTube, search NUFC Matters, and hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week.
Thank you all very much. That's very cool.
Thanks to everybody for watching. Ask Penman will be in the morning at 9 o'clock, and 10 o'clock on Sunday will be Three's a Crowd, the Northeast Football Podcast. So make sure you tune in to both of them at the Weekend Fans Forum, back normal time, 6 o'clock on Monday. Okay, let's get back to your questions. It is asked, George, what did he make of Voldemort last night? Did you manage to see any of the Germany game?
A little bit, yes. And he's got a lot going for him, and the important thing is for me is as a big man, he's got these quick feet and he's not lost on the ground. We've had big men who were hold the ball up and good headers and all the rest of it, but never really could do it much with their feet. But he looks very useful and excellent in the air. There's no question about that. He's he excites me. He does. Actually, now we're back to him. I have thought of another player to compare him with, but it's way back. If I put my history hat on, Vic Keeble was our centre forward. Vic Keeble was a brilliant header of the ball, but also tall and gangly, but very quick feet, and that made him even more dangerous. So there's a comparison from history, but getting closer to that, the tall gangly ones weren't worth remembering, to be honest.
Okay, do you think we'll get a new stadium update before the end of the year, George?
Before the end of the year, yes, I'm sure that before the end of the year, they'll come out with what's happening. So the little bit that the chairman gave away when he was here earlier this month interested me. See, everybody's been blaming planning at the council and planning here and this and that and the other. I think, in my humble opinion, it's the planning in Saudi Arabia that's as much a problem as anything, because having declared that they want Newcastle to be number one, I think they would like our stadium to be number one as well. And the chairman floated the notion of staying at St James's and turning it into a 90,000 stadium. Everybody seems to have skipped over that, unless I'm in another planet and misread that or misheard it. But I think that they're making sure that what's produced is number one, is top class, with a stadium that's all sports ready, as it were, with ability to put on anything. But like you, I would like to see at least the notion of where they are and what they're thinking is by the end of the year. That would only be fair, because everybody's hanging on every word about the stadium, and as I say, everybody's blaming this one, the council, and that one, and for nothing happening. It's planning and all this. I don't think it's quite as easy as that. I think it's a bit more complicated, because our owners want to make sure it's the best.
Always good to see new names in the chat. DXK is in the chat, says Georgie, calling you Georgie boy. What do you believe represents a successful season for Newcastle United, George? I'd say either getting to the Champions League knockout stages, retaining the League Cup, or an unlikely top 4 finish, I think, would represent progress. What do you think?
Well, I think Steve will know that you've just, when we were doing some forecasting at the end of with the Amigos, I think it was, and I think I have the reputation of being the greedy little duck because I want it all, and I would honestly think that we have the possibility of doing something absolutely unique. That's 2 cup finals and a top 4 finish. And if we can get into the knockout of the European Cup as well, that would be a real bonus. But I think domestically we have the potential to have an incredible season. But maybe my optimism's, me black and white blood starting to affect my brain. But that's how optimistic I am, and certainly would like to see something like that happen. I've got to say, if ever a club deserved for the sort of things we've gone through and had to put up with the brickbats of being labelled entitled and delusional and all that sort of thing, the one thing that hasn't wavered is that we have the most loyal fan base you could imagine. I mean, we went through 2 relegations, and both those relegations, we still managed to have an average of 50-odd thousand in the ground for a whole season. When other clubs have gone down, your Aston Villas, they were dropping down to 20,000, sometimes less. So I'm very optimistic. The Geordie boy thing is an interesting one. Who was it that said that, Steve?
DXK, new
DXK.
face in the chat.
Well, DXK, you don't know it, but you've hit on a very personal thing, because I always knew if I'd been playing and my father had been watching, and I'd come home, and the first thing he'd say is, "That was good, Geordie boy." Really, truly, that's the honest truth. So that hits a nice note for me, Geordie boy.
Oh, well, I think it was Georgie boy, not Geordie boy. But there
well,
we
that's
go.
fine. Yeah, I know what he means. Yeah.
Stephen says, why do you think Sky gets away with being so biased, George?
Oh, because they pander to the advertising companies, and the advertising companies are biased in particular ways, and that includes some of the companies that are involved in owning football clubs. It's as straightforward as that for me. It's like the rubbish BBC's become now because they're dominated by a particular group, but Sky is all about advertising revenue. They pander to the people who think they'll support their advertising and all the rest of it, and that includes companies that put money into football clubs.
John says, do you think we'll go 2 up front with Wissa and Nick Waltemada? Apparently Nick likes to drop deep, which might not be a bad thing. I think somebody else also asked a question with regards to that. Let me find it. Yeah, Jason. Do you think Eddie will change his system to play Wissa and Waltemada, or will Wissa play on the wing? Do you think? What's your feelings about these two?
I think Eddie will do as he always does, change his system as he sees fit. But I think he will try occasionally 2 up front. I find it interesting about Wissa is that he's come in all sorts of controversy about him as well, but he's come in and he's bit the bullet and taken the number 9 shirt. Now that says something to me about him that I wasn't expecting. If he'd taken 93, never mind 9, I wouldn't have been surprised. But he's taken the number 9, and I'm sure he's been told, and probably didn't need to be told, the implications of being a Newcastle number 9, and that excites me quite a bit in some ways. But it wouldn't surprise me if Eddie doesn't try two up front, particularly in European games when defenses are playing very, very, very flat and very tight, just to put a bit more pressure on them. I think that's where we succumbed to last time in the European Cup. We succumbed to Dortmund too easily, and I think had we changed the formation a little bit, we might have done better with them. But yeah, I think that's a possibility that you could see two up front occasionally. But I don't see it as a regular thing with Eddie. He'll do what he usually does. He'll switch things around to suit the opposition and what he wants out of the game.
Okay, John says, as our new CEO is Canadian, can we expect the American owners of clubs in the EPL to call for a 40% tariff on all transfers to Newcastle on top of the Saudi tax that's already in place? Christ almighty, can you imagine that, George? Well, you can't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I've got to say that that he's Canadian is a big plus in many ways for me. I mean, the relationship between us and Canada has always been so solid, but I don't see anybody being silly enough to start thinking about the sort of things that are happening at the other side of the Atlantic, and he probably one of the reasons he's been happy to be involved in communities, because I think that's a very big thing in Canadian sport, that it isn't just about the team, it's about Canadians. So that's in his DNA. So, but the notion that they might start asking to do things or being difficult because they're American, I tell you what, I would like to see the new football regulators talking about going back and having a look at owners and their fitness to be owners in retrospect. I read the other day, which I find horrific anyway. But if they do it, I'd love them to say go deeply into some of these Americans that are providing money to football clubs in the UK now, including Liverpool. I mean, I've looked myself, and some of the things I see, well, I'm not going to say it publicly, but they horrify me. They horrify me to do. So, yeah.
There's a question for you. If George had to pick 3 best Georges ever, who would he pick in his team?
Oh, goodness gracious, that is a tough one. George Robledo, number 1. Goal scorer, footballer par excellence. The only man to knock Jackie Milburn off the season's top goal scoring was George Robledo, and he was never far behind Jackie. I mean, that season he scored 32 and Jackie Milburn scored 28. Can you imagine having 2 forwards like that in your team? Good God. So George Robledo's number 1. In terms of skill and ability, you can't get past George Easton, who really was a very talented player, and despite all the problems he caused with his pay row with the club, and one who I actually played with from school, and that's George Dalton. George Dalton would have been in England fullback as well, except for very, very bad leg break, and got better and then broke it again, and ended up going to Brighton and became their physiotherapist eventually. But George Dalton is a one which another George that was particularly brilliant if he'd got the chance to be. And as I say, he and I played in the Northumberland Boys together and became roomies when we went away to Scotland on trips. And so yeah, there's the 3 Georges. But George Robledo is the outstanding George as far as I'm concerned.
George, do you think it pays for players wanting moves to kick up a fuss rather than be fully committed to their own club in the hope of a move?
No, I don't think it does. In fact, our ex-man, whose name I'm struggling to say now, our ex-man's going to have that round his neck forever, whether he likes it or not. And I don't care whether he likes it or not, but it's going to be around his neck forever. So wherever he goes, already on some of the Liverpool podcasts, you see people saying, well, in a couple of years, if Real Madrid or Barcelona come, does he do that to us? Because they've not tied him down in very, very strong contract. Will he do it to us? And I don't think it does. You compare directly, and at the same time, the young lad, Isse, that left Crystal Palace and went to Arsenal and made it plain he wanted to do it, said to the fans, I want to make my career and I've loved it here, etc., all before it happened. And when he left, the Crystal Palace fans actually applauded him in his last game, and went to Arsenal as kind of something of a hero. So they may think it helps, but I in the long run, I think they'll look back on their career and wish they hadn't done it. I mean, we've had some here. When I've talked about some recently, Pop Robson went on strike, and I think that cost him an England place. I do, I really do. And look at Kabay. Look what he did. Never another player who we loved here, but after that, whenever he come and whoever he came with, he might as well have been dead because he didn't get the lickings of a dog from the fans here, and rightly so. You're on the bus going to play Manchester City, and you suddenly tell your manager you're not getting off the bus, and you're the bloke that's been appointed to take all the free kicks and all the dead balls, and you won't even get off the bus. No, I don't think when they sit back and look at that, they'll think that they did it right. Where there's other people who have done it in a right way, get credit for it. I mean, going back again, you and I talked about Hughie Gallagher. Hughie Gallagher couldn't have been a bigger hero, and yet he went off to Chelsea. And within a month, he was back playing for Chelsea at St James's Park. And what happened?
Record attendance.
Yeah, the record attendance at the ground. I mean, nearly 69,000 people. That's the official number. When you read it, and when I talk to my older siblings when we used to talk about football, they all used to reckon it was near 100,000. The place was so stowed up for people, not just the ground, but the outside the ground. So I think those that do that sort of thing will sit back later, if not immediately, later on, and think, nah, that I really could have done without that. It's not good. Because now, Yuan Kabay, for example, brilliant, talented player, but all over the place, he's remembered as the guy who refused to play. Yeah. So I don't think it does pay them. I think in the long run, they pay for it themselves.
Are you concerned about the rumours that PIF wants Spurs?
No, not really. I think the only involvement there's already been some PIF involvement in Spurs, but I don't see them switching horses. No, not at this stage, and it doesn't concern me. The one thing I have to say, it would shatter my complete belief in people if they did something like that, because having worked with people from Saudi in my own profession, that once they make a decision and they sign, they shake hands on something, they go for it. They're not likely to back out willy-nilly. So I can see there be peripheral involvement like they've already had, where people were jumping up and down saying, well, that's our money. It was absolute nonsense. It was the PIF associate company. But and I can see that happening. Like the stuff that they're doing with the World Cup and the stuff they're doing with other football stuff nationally and internationally. That's not affecting us. In fact, that's that's promoting us, in my view. They have this big thing for, is it 2030 thing, and I think they see Newcastle being at the front of that.
Do you think 130 million was enough for Isak?
Well, if that, it's not a bad price considering what we paid for him. But you see, I add on to that immediately the fact that we made them pay on top of that these bonuses, which was another 17 million. So that's up to 147 million, which is only a smidgen of the 150 million the chairman said he wanted. So again, the people who want to promote the narrative that Liverpool done the deal will promote the smaller figures. Some even quote 125, not even 130. But the reality of life is it's nearer 147. So no, I think it was quite good business for what we paid for him and what he did for us. I mean, that's the irony. Had he done this in the right way, he could have gone with our blessings, because the money obviously is. Well, I mean, are we going to have any PSR problems for the next 3 windows? I don't think we are. Thanks to Mr. Isak.
You're on death row, says Ian. You have one last meal. What do you order?
Oh, T-bone steak with mushrooms and French fries.
Ian said he'd order 1 million hot dogs. He's obviously trying to buy a bit of time. AJ says, what's George's favourite era of football?
Favourite era? Well, I've got to be honest, I'm not copping out on that. I'm very excited with some of the things we're starting to see now. But my favourite era was the period of which we had Pele, Janinta, and Socrates in the Brazilian team, and we had Bobby Charlton and the likes in the England team, and it was good stuff. It was entertaining. It was very combative as well. So that period of the 60s, I think, and stretching upwards. I mean, I count myself fortunate enough to have seen the Busby Babes, and the player I think would have been the greatest player of all time, Duncan Edwards. Actually seen him play, and a couple of times my father, quite deliberately, he and I went off to see games in other places just because Duncan Edwards was playing. We went to Joker Park to see him play against the Mackhams, and then he was playing in an international in Sheffield. They played an international at Hillsborough, and my dad bought tickets, and we went to see him there just because it was Duncan Edwards. So that period of where there was, Pele and all of the Brazilian stars, and it was, and some big Italian stars as well. Was exciting stuff, exciting football.
Where do you think we need to improve in January, George? Says John. A holding midfielder for me as cover for Tonali, and a right back as Trippier must be in his last season.
That's not a bad shout. If we'd seem destined as we are to keep Tino at left back while Trippier's there, I see Tino and Lewis Hall as the fullbacks going forward, unless Eddie has some great plan for Lewis Hall. But a fullback, and the notion of a holding midfielder is not a bad one. But I'd like to see someone else who could, with some talent, not just holding, but some attacking talent from midfield, to take a bit of the weight off what we've got now. I still think, Bruno is fantastic. It's a fantastic thing. I still wonder if he was given the freedom of the park, how much more dangerous he would be. And the only way we'll do that is to buy somebody who does the little bits that he does now. So the midfielder I see, yeah.
George, do you think Anthony Gordon is brazenly fishing for a Liverpool move by saying in his farewell social media message to the Swede that he had one of his best chemistries with him?
No, I don't think so. The one thing I've learned about Anthony Gordon, I think, I hope I'm not wrong, is that he wears his heart on his sleeve, and that's him just saying to his mate that, yeah, thanks, buddy, that we hit it off, and they did. They on form, that combination. Don't forget Jacob Murphy either, mind, because although Isak scored the goals, some of them were laid on the plate by Jacob Murphy, as well as Anthony Gordon. So no, I read that into what you get out of two people who've worked together, and while they were working together, got on together. For me, it's as simple as that. If I'm wrong, then I'm happy to eat my hat, but I don't think I am. I think that's just Anthony Gordon being generous to his former colleague. Simple as that for me.
Do you reckon there'll be another classic against Barcelona, says Darren?
Yes, it will be. I mean, to begin with, the people that weren't there and haven't heard about it, and have heard about the two classics we've had against Barcelona, not just one. Yeah, I think and credit to the people out there who will be there, because there's no doubt about it. Our crowd can generate the atmosphere like they did against Liverpool, and that was unbelievable. That second goal raised the highest level cheer ever at St James's Park, 123 decibels. Well, I think we've seen what happened to PSG when they came to St James's Park. We've seen what happened to Milan when they came to St James's Park. So yes, I think it'll be a night to remember, because the one thing you can expect of Barcelona, they're not going to come and lie down. They're going to make a match of it, whatever the crowd's like. But so I'm expecting something really, really special on that night.
George, if you had the power, would you stop any more Americans buying Premier League clubs?
Wow. No, I don't think so. I think I don't mind people invest in the game. What bothers me is how the Premier League is structured. If I wanted to do something, it wouldn't be about owners. It would be about the structure of the Premier League. In this ridiculous voting system where you've got to have 14 people to say yes, when a simple majority should do, like in most businesses, like in most structures of committee, like in most governments, for God's sake. 51% wins the battle, where the way things are in the Premier League at the moment, even if you get 50%, you cannot win. You're nowhere near. You've got to have this magic 14, and that's how the top 4, top 6 have been able to manipulate how things have gone. Being able to introduce things like the Newcastle rules, for God's sake. That they're so brazen that they about what was done. They actually let somebody name them the Newcastle rules, which is just painful. But no, I'm not upset about money coming in that direction. What I would like to see is some honesty with our press, and say, this notion that American money's good, and Arab money and brown money and other money's, Eastern money's bad, is just ridiculous, because they need to search their souls. That even throwing the human rights thing at Saudi Arabia now gets my goat, because they just don't do any research. It's an easy target. Mm-hmm. So that's where I would like to see the change, not in where the owners come from, with how the Premier League structured to allow them to operate in the UK. And for me, the first thing I'd do is get rid of that stupid 14 votes to win sort of thing.
I'll squeeze a couple in before we finish. Who is George's favourite sportsman outside of football?
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, from a personal point of view, someone who I've met and someone who I like very much, but came out of nowhere and became a world champion, Jonathan Edwards, the long jumper. And it's personally because at school, I used to be a bit of a sprinter and long jumper. And then many years later, lo and behold, our Neil became a county champion at long jump. But Jonathan Edwards, because he local, came from nowhere and broke the world record, which stood for
Still stands.
Still there, is it? Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
nobody's broke. It's 30 years now.
Yeah, you don't surprise
30 years,
me.
30 years this year.
Then that's my favourite outside of football. I have others that I enjoyed, but
favourite stadium that you miss?
Oh, that I miss.
That isn't there anymore.
Oh, Highbury.
Same as me. Did you ever meet Wilf Mannion?
No, I didn't.
His late father, who was born in Middlesbrough and played at Essen Park as a schoolboy, always talked about him, Stephen says.
Oh, yeah, and why not? He was a brilliant player. I never actually met him, saw him plenty of times. And playing in the Northern League, we for Newcastle, in Northern Intermediate League, Ted Hughes was the manager, and if there was anybody famous in the crowd, you could guarantee Ted Hughes would drag them in at half time or at the end of the match, just come and say hello. And in that way, the lads that played with me, like George Dalton and Joe Butler and people like that, we met some incredible people like John Charles, the Billy Wright, the England captain. So if Wilf Mannion had been at Essen Park when we were there, Ted Hughes would have dragged them in. But no, I mean, an incredible player. Not just a fantastic footballer. He could pass, he could dribble, and he scored a lot of goals, a lot of very, very good goals. So, yeah, Wilf Mannion, rightly so, one of the best of his time.
Yeah, Blue Rhythm Boy. I will be getting some Adidas Originals, Terrace Collection, definitely. And they might do a 95 away for the retro. Ian, thank you for donating the memberships, as always, much appreciated. Last question we'll give to Benny. Do we need to consider release clauses in the future, George? We don't seem to be, doing these kind of things in certain contracts.
Well, I would do it all the time, and if it happens to be a huge one, it's a huge one. I mean, haven't seen how you see even release clauses. Some players have used that to get out of contracts, but you just make it big enough to make it hurt the people who want them, make them pay for it. It's as simple as that for me.
Great hour. Thank you, everybody, for the questions. You kept us going all the way through. Wonderful stuff. Back in the morning. I am back at 10 o'clock in the morning with Ask Penman, and then 10 o'clock on Sunday morning with Three's a Crowd. George, thanks very much, mate. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. I do appreciate it. Thank you.